What's up guys, I'm Dean and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I thought I'd try something similar to what I did a couple of weeks ago. A couple of weeks ago I went through my top 50 films of all time, so today I thought I'd go through my top 10 TV shows of all time. Because I don't feel like I talk enough about TV on here, because I am more of a movie guy, but I do obviously watch a lot of TV and I love a lot of it and I love to talk about what I love. So let's jump straight into this, my top 10 TV shows of all time. In 10th place, I just want to start off with a very simple question for you. Do you really want to taste it? In 10th place, we have Peacemaker. There are very few superhero shows on this list, and this is one of them. It is phenomenal. James Gunn is the best comic book movie director of all time. I haven't seen Guardians of the Galaxy 3 yet, because it's not out yet when I'm recording this, but James Gunn's the best. You know, Guardians of the Galaxy, best MCU film. Guardians of the Galaxy 2, phenomenal. The Suicide Squad, phenomenal. And Peacemaker is more emotional, more grounded, and just has better arcs than any of his other stuff that I've seen. It is a phenomenal TV show. I really think it is out of this world. I think you take such an unlikable character and horrible character like Peacemaker you have in the Suicide Squad as in the film, and then you translate him into this TV show, and at the start you feel exactly the same about him, and at the end you feel sorry for him and you love him and you hate him. It is a phenomenal arc. Everything to do with his dad was so delicately handled and handled with such intelligence and like there was humor around it, but it was just handled so gently. And John Cena's performance, I did not know that man could act as well as he could, and just the whole plot, phenomenal. Great TV show, and it's short as well, which is always a bonus. In 9th place, we've got the one and only sitcom on this list, Parks and Recreation. I adore this show. I think the first season is pretty rough, but from there it is consistently good, which I think is very rare for a sitcom to be as consistent as Parks and Rec. I think it's brilliantly funny, and like, choosing my favourite sitcom is difficult because I love Community. I think Community is great. I think Schitt's Creek's great. I'm like a fan of the middle. The Office is pretty good. There's a lot of great sitcoms, but Parks and Rec has to be my favourite. But because, yes, it's really funny and it has like different sensibilities of humour compared to a lot of this other stuff. But the characters, there's such emotion there, and like they develop over the course of the show, and I think the way they develop together and further apart, I think is brilliant. Thinking about it, in terms of sitcoms, I'd probably sub this out for Arrested Development, if Arrested Development didn't have those last 2 seasons that it did. In 8th place, we've got one of the only 2 animated shows on this list, and that is BoJack Horseman. I've got a post for it just there. And this show also starts for off season 1. Not great, but after that, really, really something special. It is really funny, and there are some great jokes that they like they're building up to a punchline for an entire season of television, and then they hit the punchline and it's great. And stuff like that, I think, is really underrated and really cool. But the emotion behind this show and the characters and the depth there and just how much you hate them is phenomenal. The voice acting is phenomenal. I think, yes, this has some of the funniest jokes of any TV show ever, but it is so much more than that. The Free Churro episode, which is just an episode of BoJack Horseman at his mother's funeral, just giving a eulogy, and it's just one monologue from him as a character. It's phenomenally well written. It is such an emotional show. It is so conflicting because you hate all the characters so much, but it's great. I can't rewatch this show because it just upsets me so much. It is such an upsetting show in all the best ways. Completely changing tone. In 7th place, we have Aunty Donna's Big Ol' House of Fun. I think this one might be a bit more of the lesser known TV shows on this list. If you don't know, Aunty Donna is a Australian sketch group, predominantly big on YouTube, but they released a Netflix show a couple of years ago now, I think, and it's 6 episodes, 20 minutes each. It's just silly sketches. There's not much continuity or anything to it, and I think it's brilliantly funny. I think it's probably the funniest thing on this list, and I just adore it. I really, really love their stuff. I really love their sense of humour and the way these things are shot and created, and the set design and the costumes, and I think all of that is done on such a high standard. And then just the show itself is incredibly funny. It's on Netflix, Aunty Donna's Big Ol' House of Fun. I'd recommend it. Just watch one episode because they're like 20 minutes anyway. I'd recommend this. to anyone, is a bit of an absurdist sketch comedy, which I'm always a fan of. In 6th place, we have Severance. Once again, completely changing tone here. Severance is kind of a satirical... It's a satire about capitalism and the workplace, but it's also a mystery show, and it's kind of a set in the near future. It's really interesting. Basically, the premise of the show is that there's this company that when you get to work, your brain switches, you forget everything else about your life apart from your work, and then when you leave work, your brain switches and you forget everything about your work. So there's like two people inside your brain. There's the person that does all the work, and there's the person walking around living your life. This show, there's only one season out at the moment, and the mystery is not anywhere near resolved. But the way the mystery is set up and slowly revealed is phenomenal. I think the emotion behind the characters and some of the performances are out of this world. Adam Scott is on this list twice because he's also in Parks and Recreation, obviously, and he is just sublime here. It is incredible, the performance he gives. But what really sells this show is just it's slowly ramping up to revealing more and more about this mystery. And I'm not going to spoil it, but the last episode of this season might be the best season finale I have ever seen. I think it is just... It is so tense. It is 40 minutes long, and the entire time you're just gripping whatever you're holding on the edge of your seat. It is just so shocking and interesting, and there's so much to think about here and chew over, because number one, you've got this mystery that you're slowly trying to figure out in your head, and then secondly, you've also got all the commentary on the real world and all the satire and all that sort of thing, and then you're slowly piecing that together and piecing together the message of the show as you go along too. And I think these two factors alongside, there are funny moments built into the tension, because it's funny as in, haha, look at these stupid people. And I think that really works as well. But really what works here is the tension and the mystery. Great stuff. I cannot wait for season 2. I cannot stress that enough. I only finished this show recently, and for the next 24 hours after finishing this show, it was all I could think about. I could not think of anything else other than the ending of this show, because it is that interesting, that tense, and that brilliantly put together. I think everyone knew this was going to be on this list, but I think people may be upset with where I put it. In 5th place is Breaking Bad. Even now, as I'm saying this, I'm debating with myself whether it should be in 5th place. But the top 4 shows are just so good, so it's staying in 5th place. Sorry everyone, I don't think I need to sing Breaking Bad, blah 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 blah. I don't think I need to sing Breaking Bad's praises, because everyone who's seen Breaking Bad loves it. I think it is a phenomenal character study, and on the first watch I think so much of it will go over a lot of the audience's head, because you still see stuff online about, oh, I like Walter White and I like just... None of these characters... The whole point is it's Breaking Bad and all these characters you're supposed to hate, and I think it does a really interesting job of pushing this character further and further into darkness, and seeing how much as an audience we can take and still somewhat root for him, because you no matter what, you still find a small part of yourself rooting for Walter White throughout the show. And he is a despicable human being, and just this is some of the best performances I've ever seen. Just Bryan Cranston and Aaron Paul just yeah, you can't even put it into words how good their performances are. But what's even above that is how they evolve as characters over the course of the show. Phenomenal. Like I said, I don't need to say this, but it's also got such interesting cinematography. I think they do really interesting stuff with that. I think it's got it's got a great look to the show, and everything just fits together and rolls forward slowly and slowly, and I just think it's great, and I think the way the characters develop over the course of the show is phenomenal. There are some weak moments to it. It's not perfect, but it's great. I love it. In 4th place, we have the only other animated show on this list, and that's Gravity Falls. Maybe part of this is nostalgia, because I adored this show while it was coming out, and I watched all of it while it was coming out, and all of that's great, but I think the show is brilliantly funny. But I think on top of that, number one, it's also got another great mystery, and it's like a different kind of mystery where it's more overt, and It's got great characters, and just I really love the world building here. I think the rules of the world and the creatures within the world are like bizarre, but they all fit together well, and like the world works well together. And this has a 3-part finale to the second season, and it is, I keep saying phenomenal, but it is. It's crazy good. Like, it gives every single character over the course of the last 2 seasons a chance to shine. It has Bill Cipher as a villain who's just a big Illuminati guy, and he is great and weird and scary and threatening, and I think the main characters really do develop over the course of the show, which is rare for a kid show. I mean, this show might take a while to get into because season 2 is definitely stronger than season 1. But there's some stuff revealed throughout the show which changes the rest of the show, which I think is like rare for an animated show. And I hate it when people say, "Oh, this show might take a while to get into," but I've already said that about Parks and Rec, and BoJack Horseman, and this. But good news, the top 3 shows probably shouldn't take any time to get into. In third place this is going to really upset some people, Better Call Saul. I think this is a more interesting show than Breaking Bad, because the dynamic at its core and its struggle with Jimmy McGill or Saul Goodman is so much more compelling than Breaking Bad. And that's not at all an insult to Breaking Bad, because I adore Breaking Bad, but I think this has such an interesting approach to the character of Jimmy McGill. Because the thing is, with Breaking Bad, with Walter White, it is just he gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, and there's not much there to redeem him. And like, it works for the show it is, and I think the way they just keep plunging him deeper and deeper is great, like I said. But the difference with Saul Goodman, the difference with Jimmy McGill, is that he is just falling and rising and falling and rising, and he's a lot more likable. And I think you see why he's the way he is a lot more than you do with Walter White. I think the difference with Jimmy McGill is that you feel so much more sorry for him, and you side with him a lot more naturally. I think his relationship with his brother Chuck is the most interesting dynamic in anything in the Breaking Bad, in Better Call Saul, in El Camino. It's such an interesting dynamic, and people still debate about it online because people side with Chuck and people side with Jimmy, and I think there are arguments to both sides, and that's the beauty of it, because it feels so real and it's so complex, and there's so many layers to it that you don't notice unless you're really paying attention to the show. And I think the last season is one of the best last seasons of television ever. I think the episode Fun and Games, with a specific moment with Howard Hamlin, is the most like I've ever felt during watching any TV show. Like I'm not going to say what happened because people might not have watched it, but if I'm saying there's an episode with Howard Hamlin in Saul Goodman's apartment, people know what I'm talking about. In that last season, I was lying down on the sofa, and before I knew what happened, I was like crouching on the sofa. I jumped up because it was that shocking and it was that well made. And I think there are some amazing monologues in this show. I think there are amazing montages. I think it is shot brilliantly, and I think the way it wraps itself up is so perfect. Better Call Saul is so good, and I want to rewatch it right now. In second place is a much shorter show, and that is The End of the Effing World. This show is, you could probably watch it in a day easily. There's 2 seasons, and it basically follows a sociopath who wants to, start murdering people, who falls in love with a nymphomaniac teenager, and they both just go on the run from the police across the country together. And it is brilliantly funny. It is brilliantly well developed, and I think the show feels so real and grounded, and I think the way it develops over the first season is great, and the first season is phenomenal. It's amazing. The second season, when they announced the second season, I didn't know if I was happy or not, because the first season ends on a bit of a cliffhanger. And yeah, it's a bit of a cliffhanger, but it's still such a satisfying season of television. It is just like a Bonnie and Clyde story. And when the second season was announced and they were introducing these new characters, I didn't know how I felt. But the second season holds up. The second season is great. It goes in a different direction to what you expect, but it's still so satisfying, so fun, so grounded, so emotional. It's a great show. If you haven't seen it, check it out. The End of the Effing World is 2 seasons. It's probably about like 5 or 6 hours long throughout, so it's a quick watch and definitely worth your time. What's in first place though? Well, give me some time to think. People might have noticed over my shoulder here we have a poster for The Boys, and it's The Boys. There's 2 superhero shows on this list, and The Boys is the best one. The Boys is one of the greatest TV shows ever made, and I mean that full-hearted. It's amazing, and yes, partially it's because I'm a little superhero fanboy, but this show is so intelligently made. It has such great satire to it. It has such great commentary on just capitalism and celebrity culture, and I think the performances at its core are out of this world, and also it's just pretty cool. Like, it is incredibly intelligent, but it's so dumb at the same time, and there's just so much dumb stuff going on that I just love every second of it. Anthony Starr as Homelander is perhaps the greatest villain performance of all time. It's definitely up there. He is just so unnerving and threatening, and what I've read some of the Boys comics, and it's crap. The Boys as a comic book is just crap, and I feel comfortable saying that. And the difference here with the show is they do take it in a different direction, and they take it in a lot more methodical way. They develop the satire, because it wasn't really satire in the first one. It was kind of this guy's raping people and that's cool. It's not really like that, but it's bad. It's not far off. And here they handle certain issues so delicately while still being humorous about it and still making fun of the situations in certain ways, and I think that really, really worked. And I think certain characters have really interesting growth across the 3 seasons, but what works best for me is there's an episode in season 3 called Herogasm, and it's just the entire show has been building up between this confrontation between Homelander and Billy Butcher and the rest of the boys, and when it hits its peak, it is phenomenal, because it took 2.5 seasons of interesting and phenomenal television to get there. But when it gets there, it is so satisfying, and it's like everything you've been waiting for, because you see all the story of the superheroes, you see all the story of Homelander and all of that, and Homelander and some of the others rarely cross over with the boys, and when it happens, they do it so delicately and interestingly, and I cannot wait to see where this show goes, because each season just keeps ramping it up and up and up in really satisfying and interesting ways. If you're interested in hearing me talk more about the boys, because I love it, it might just be my favourite work of fiction ever, then I'm rewatching it this month to talk about it on my podcast at the end of the month, which will be coming out in 2 or 3 weeks, something like that. So just keep an eye out for that. HD Movie Talk. Go subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Spotify. Whatever. I'm ending this on a plug. This is my YouTube channel. I can do what I want. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Please comment your favourite TV shows down below and give me recommendations. If you're like, hey Dean, if you like The End of the Effing World, you'll really like this TV show, because I'd appreciate that. I would. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.